Hello! Happy and cheerful morning to all my dear students. I hope you all are fine at home and taking care of your health. So we are back with our English class and today we will start with a new story, an interesting story that is about chapter number 16 and it is about a girl named Heidi. Okay? So, आपको जैसे पिक में दिख रहा होगा हाइडी इज अ वेरी फेमस कैरेक्टर ओके जो हम स्टोरी पढ़ने जा रहे हैं इट इज अबाउट अ लिटिल गर्ल नेम्ड हाइडी एंड दिस स्टोरी इज ऑल्सो अवेलेबल इन मेनी स्टोरी बुक्स इन कार्टून्स एंड ऑल्सो मूवीज okay so it is a very famous character and you can find it on YouTube also. So it is a story about a little girl who lives with her aunt Teet. Okay? वो aunt Teet के साथ रहती है and वो अलग अलग situations में कैसे adjust करती है and उसकी life में क्या क्या होता है. This is the story all about. So we will find out and we will learn about it. So are you ready? Let us begin.
Once upon a time, there was a little girl called Heidi. Heidi lived in a little town near some mountains in Switzerland with her Aunt Diet. One day, Aunt Diet said, "Today we will go and see your grandfather. He lives up in the mountains." As they climbed up the mountains, they saw a boy called Peter who looked after some mountain goats. Heidi and Aunt Diet walked up to the little house where grandfather lived. Grandfather came out to meet them. Aunt Diet said, "Heidi, I have to go to the big town of Frankfurt. I cannot take you with me. You must stay here with your grandfather." Heidi was worried, so was her grandfather. He said, "I'm much too old to look after a little girl."
Okay, so what we saw? That we saw the character that is Heidi and she lives with her aunt. Okay, and they live in Switzerland and one day aunt said that let us go to meet your grandfather who lives in the mountains. Okay, तो उन्होंने डिसाइड किया कि अब हम आपके ग्रैंडफादर से मिलने जाएंगे जो माउंटेन्स में रहते हैं and finally they went and on the way what they saw a boy named Peter. Okay, एक और new character that is Peter who used to look after the goats and shepherds. Okay, so वो look after करता था animals का. Now what happened that aunt said suddenly कि मुझे town में जाना है, मुझे थोड़ा काम है. So I want Heidi to stay over here with grandfather. Now Heidi was worried and so was the grandfather. Why? Because it was a new place for her, isn't it? She lives with her aunt only and all of a sudden aunt says कि आपको थोड़े दिन के लिए अपने grandfather के साथ रहना पड़ेगा. Now along with this even the grandfather was worried. Why? Because he told I'm too old and she's a little girl. How will I take care of her? So this is why they were worried. Now let us find out what happens next.
But Aunt Diet went back down the mountain and Heidi was left with her grandfather. "Where will I sleep?" she asked. Grandfather made her a little bed in the hayloft. Then Peter took Heidi some goat's milk to drink. Heidi was happy in the mountains with her grandfather. She liked the trees and flowers, and she liked looking after the goats with Peter. Heidi liked the little white goat best of all. Her name was Snowflake.
So now what happened? Finally, Heidi was happy. Initially, starting में उसको लगा कि मैं कैसे adjust करूँगी इनके घर में. So she asked, "Where will I sleep?" So the grandfather made a little arrangement for her to sleep. So she used to play in the mountains and उसने एक new friend भी बना लिया that is Peter. Peter आपको याद है जो हमने starting में देखा था? So she made Peter her friend and what happened? He used to offer her goat milk And Heidi की favorite की सबसे छोटी वाली थी and her name was Snowflake. Okay, she's enjoying and she's having the time of her life. Now let's see what happens next.
Sometimes Heidi went to see Peter's grandmother, who was blind. Heidi told her about all the beautiful trees and flowers that she saw in the mountains. But one day, Aunt Deet came back from Frankfurt. Heidi, she said, it's time you went to school in Frankfurt. I will take you to stay with my friends who live there. Grandfather was sad. Does Heidi have to go? He asked. Heidi was sad too. I want to stay here with grandfather and Peter, she said. But Aunt Dieter said, no, you must go to school.
So what happened now? That finally when she was enjoying to live in the mountains with Peter and the grandfather, Aunt came back from Frankfurt and she said कि अब आपको वापस जाना होगा, है ना? Because वो थोड़े दिन के लिए ही वहीं रही थी. Now she has to go back to Frankfurt. There she has to go to school, she has to study. But Heidi was not happy. Why? Because she liked to live in the mountains with grandfather and Peter. So grandfather was very upset. He said, is it necessary that Heidi also has to go? But aunt did not agree. She said, no, she has to go to her school and she has to study. So finally, she left the mountains.
Aunt Dieter took Heidi to live with some of her friends in a big house in Frankfurt. A little girl called Clara lived there. Clara could not walk. She had to stay in a wheelchair all the time. Heidi liked Clara, but she wasn't happy living in Frankfurt. She wanted to go back to grandfather and Peter in the mountains. At night, Heidi dreams that she was in the mountains with Snowflake, the little white goat.
Now we are at the second phase of the story. क्या हुआ? अब माउंटेन से वो अब नीचे आ गए. Where? To Frankfurt. They are back to Frankfurt. And what did aunt do? She made her stay with some strangers in a big house. Now there's a new character, that is Clara. As you saw, Clara is a little girl just like Heidi, but she's on a wheelchair. So Clara and Heidi भी friends बन गए. Heidi को अच्छा तो लगा, but somewhere she was missing those mountains, Peter and Snowflake also, isn't it? And even spending time with grandfather. But she was missing them a lot. And during night, when she used to sleep, वो क्या ड्रीम करती थी कि वो वापस से माउंटेन्स में चली गई and she's enjoying and playing with Snowflake, the little goat, you remember? Now let's see what happens next.
One day, when Heidi came home from school, Clara said, last night, the maid saw a ghost on the stairs. Tonight, Daddy will stay up so that he can see the ghost too.
So what happened? Clara said that they have seen a ghost at night and her father decided that he will stay awake. उन्हें इतने बड़े घर में एक भूत दिखा है. Okay, it's a ghost. And her father decided that finally I'm going to catch him in the night. Now let's see what will happen. Stay up in the above lines can be replaced by stay with someone, staying on the first floor or remain awake. So stay up means remain awake. Okay?
So that night, Clara's father went to look for the ghost. His friend, the doctor who looked after Clara, went with him. As they were searching, there was a noise on the stairs. It was Heidi walking in her sleep. So this is the ghost after all, said Clara's father. The doctor took Heidi back to her bedroom and woke her up very gently. What were you dreaming about? Said the doctor. I was dreaming about the mountains, said Heidi. I am happy here, but I miss my grandfather and Peter.
So now what happened? Who was the ghost? It was Heidi. So there was no ghost actually, but it was Heidi who used to walk. Okay, वो नींद में चलती थी and सबको क्या लगा कि there is some ghost over there. So finally Clara's father, he found out that it was Heidi. There was no ghost. So what he did? He took her to a bedroom and उससे पूछा कि क्या हुआ, आप worried हो, आपको ऐसा क्या होता है कि आप नींद में चलने लगते हो? So she said that I am happy over here, but I really miss my grandfather. I miss Peter and Goldflake also. Now, what do you think will Clara's father do? Will he send her back to the mountains? Or will he say something to Aunt Dates? Will he complain? So that we will find out in the next video. Now let us do some dictionary meanings. Blind. Blind means not able to see. जिसे हमें पता है blind लोग कौन होते हैं? Those who cannot see. Climbed. Climbed means went up towards the top of something. We say now that we climbed the stairs. So for example, he climbed up the ladder to reach the roof. So हमने climb किया ताकि हम top पे पहुंच सके. Dreamt. What is dreamt? Experienced a series of images, events and feelings in your mind while you were asleep. Dreamt means जब हम रात को सोते हैं तो हमें सपने आते हैं, isn't it? That is your dreams. So it means the same that when we experience some images or events, जब हमें नींद में सोते वक्त कुछ images आती हैं mind में, all this happening, whatever happened in the day or with your friends, anyone. So that is dreamt. Is it clear? So we'll stop over here and we will continue in the next class. Till that, may God bless you. Goodbye.